Yes.
Yeah.
What?
We'll shut the
Go ahead. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Dr. Downing, let's talk a little bit about Colonel Stansbury. If you had to all right, summing up Colonel Stansbury, if someone said to you in a few simple words, what would you say about the man? What would you say?
Well, it would be virtually impossible to, in a few simple words, describe a man who's had such a broad experience in from the time he was born until today, and he, having had his birthday yesterday, is entering 100 years, and my association with him has been almost 70 years. I was a sophomore, Horse Cave High School. My brother Alec was a senior, outstanding basketball player. My brother was, and Mr. Stansbury, as we knew him in those days, he was Mr. Diddle's #1 assistant at Western, coaching the Hilltoppers. And we'd read a little bit about the Hilltoppers, but and about Mr. Diddle, but we got to know Ed Stansbury when he would come to Horse Cave to referee basketball games. Our coach there, W.B. Owen, was one of Mr. Diddle's early great players and preceded Ed Stansbury here as an athlete and a student. But we got to know him then as a referee. And then my brother Alec graduated in '37, came to Western, and I started coming to the campus because he was here on the Western basketball team. And then in 1939, when I graduated from high school, Mr. Diddle and Mr. Stansbury were among the big reasons that I chose Western. And he has recruited a lot of great players at Western back through the years that he was Mr. Diddle's assistant. You know, he was born in Shepherdsville, and early on, after graduation from high school, he came to Western, but he had been a fireman on the L&N Railroad prior to that for a few months, and it was a pretty good job, and he liked it. And he got discouraged during the early days he was here on the campus, and he suddenly disappeared, and Mr. Diddle started looking for him, and he found him in a hotel in Corbin, Kentucky, between the railroad runs that he was a fireman on the railroad. And Mr. Diddle told him that he was going to whip him good or he was coming back to Western. So he came back, and it was a great day for Western when he did, of course, because he was really an outstanding athlete here. And he coached the first All-American here, Red McCrocklin, with Mr. Diddle and Coach Stansbury. And the team that my brother Alec started as a freshman with had our second great All-American, Carlisle Towery. And Mr. Stansbury was instrumental in recruiting them, and then was actively involved in coaching them. And he was also an assistant, as well as assistant basketball coach. He was assistant to a great coach we had here, Coach Gander Terry. He had been a teammate of Coach Terry's in football, and Coach Terry became head football coach here, and Stansbury, Colonel Stansbury, was assistant in football and basketball. And he's, from the time my sophomore year in high school, and that goes back a ways, we've been early on, I'd say associated, but then for almost 70 years, treasured friends, and have great respect, admiration, and love for him.
When you and I talked on the telephone yesterday, you were talking about, I'm going to paraphrase, they don't make them like that anymore.
Well, of course, that's a term I suppose that we apply to unique individuals, and I think that's true. I know of no one who has had a more varied and exciting careers. I wouldn't say career because he had a distinguished military career and has also, after retiring from the military as a full colonel, he had a career with the Honeywell Corporation. Colonel Stansbury has always had an inquisitive mind. He wants to know how things happened. He wants to know how things work. And he also is accustomed to attention to detail and structure. He's just a unique individual. Not many people, and I hate to admit it, but I don't know a thing in the world about a computer or a word processor or whatever. But he gets the best he can find when he was living in Largo, Florida, outside of Tampa there, to come and instruct him on the computer. And he's a whiz at it. He's and on that word processor, he writes his congressman, he writes people here on the campus, and I don't know many people who have that kind of motivation and that kind of interest. But when he was here at Western, it was back in the days when everyone on the coaching staff also taught classes. They were members of the faculty, and he was held in high regard by members of the faculty at Western. He's had a close association with, and in many cases, friendships with every president who served at Western, beginning with Dr. Cherry. Dr. Cherry had great confidence in Ed Stansbury. He would ask him to drive his automobile and take him to Frankfurt back in the days when that was a good half-day trip or more. And he had the confidence of President Cherry. He had a close association with many of the finest scholars on the campus. He loves history. He reads everything he can get his hands on. And if he walks into a room, he starts looking. If there's a book there, he'll take it and he'll open it to the content of the book, and he think, well, I think I'll just read part of that. And when he comes now, and has for many, many years, he and his wife Edith, a number of years ago, favored us by being our house guests when they've come for homecoming. And we always enjoyed having them. And he starts looking around, and he wants books to read while he's there. He's an interesting individual, a very lovable gentleman, and knowledgeable about far more events, people. In the military, he served under some of the most outstanding in the military, General LeMay and General Arnold and General Bradley, and either served with them or under them. Served at the Pentagon. He was in Germany. He was in Japan. He had a breadth of experience as a distinguished military career.
So he's the real deal.
He is the real article, let me tell you. There's nothing fake about Ed Stansbury. He analyzes things. Even today, in the turmoil in which we sometimes find ourselves, he forms opinions, but always based on his research, his watching, listening, and reading about whatever the issue may be. And I think he has great control of the major currents in life. He devoted to his friends. You know, I think all of us are maybe a composite of our experiences, the people with whom we've been associated, and he was married to a lady who was an English teacher, and she made sure that he exercised the proper grammar, table manners, and whatever. As someone might say, in the community where he grew up in either Corbin or Shepherdsville, he was in both for a good bit of his early years. They would say that Edith polished him up right good. And you know, a lot of things we've learned about Ed, had no idea for a number of years that what a successful coach he was before he came to Western. He coached at Lancaster, Kentucky. He coached Lancaster high school team in a season where they won all 11 games. No opponent scored on them. And he has pictures, a picture of that football team. And one of his dearest friends, H.B. Clark, H.B. Sr., was a 140-pound lineman. Ed said if he had 11 players like H.B. Clark, he would be the national champion. Said he was a tiger and quick as a cat. And they, as years went on, they were great friends here at Western, and then later, because H.B. also had a highly active and distinguished career in World War II. He didn't make a career out of it, but when he was in World War II. But he and Ed swapped stories about when Ed coached him, and stories about when one or the other of them saw the devastation that was wrought upon Japan when the atom bomb was dropped. And he's seen and been a part of so many different events, and it's amazing that, as he says, with Western having been founded in March of 1906, and he was born in the following July, that he and Western are the same age.
Let's talk a little bit about the spirit makes the master and how Ed Stansbury embodies that slogan.
More so than about anyone you would find anywhere. Of course, Dr. Cherry transmitted that quality which he at one time defined as, many people know he defined it when somebody said, well, just what is the spirit? He said it's that other thing. And then his association with Dr. Cherry, and then later with Coach Diddle, I guess, other than Kelly Thompson and members of the Cherry family, there's no one any closer to Dr. Cherry or Mr. Diddle than Ed Stansbury and Kelly Thompson. They were classmates. And of course, all of us will forever be grateful to Dr. Kelly Thompson, because he, as all of us are aware, was more devoted to a single purpose than anyone I've ever known. And Ed's association with him and his friendship through all the years that followed their time together here as classmates had a great influence on that. And then he, early on, it was very evident that he had a great sense of loyalty. And that's a quality which was always very important to Coach Diddle, Dr. Cherry, Kelly Thompson, and Ed Stansbury. He's loyal. I'm sure during the 10 years I was president of Western, he observed some things that he wondered, why is old Dero doing that? But it didn't affect his loyalty. It didn't affect his friendship. It didn't affect his support. But he's always been loyal to Western. Even in the years when the military assignment would not allow him to come for homecoming, he kept in touch, wanted to know what the score of the football game was, what happened during homecoming he had named 2 or 3. It was Bad Eye Tipton or whomever, Clarence Cable or some of his old friends. Were they there? Boy, I wish I'd have been there to see him, he'd say. And he possessed a deep sense of loyalty to Western, and he had a grasp of an understanding of sensitivity to and devotion to that spirit that was and still is so much a part of Western Kentucky University.
Oh, what a nice soundbite. I don't have anything else to ask.
The thing I would ask, and the thing that he likes to describe himself as, he's a very lucky man. And he says that's why he has gotten where he has gotten and done what he has done, that he has been a lucky man. Would you say that's true?
Well, I would prefer to call it fate, maybe. Fate brought Edith Stansbury into his life, and that was a great blessing to him. They were wonderful combination, and other things that may have changed the direction in which he took at a particular time. Colonel Stansbury came back at the invitation of President Garrett, thinking at the time when he came in 1946, at the close of World War II, that he would organize and shape the future direction of Western athletics. Earlier on, he had been head of the Department of Health, Physical Education, and Recreation, and wonderful department head. He was right at the verge of completing the requirements for his PhD when, in World War II, he was en route to Europe and crossing the Atlantic on a troop ship, and it was torpedoed and sunk, and he spent 2, maybe 3 days there in the lifeboat before he was picked up. He and comrades who were able to get on the lifeboat. But he's had such a varied and sometimes more than interesting, it would be dangerous, it would be exciting at times, the experiences that he's had in the military. And when he comes back for homecoming, the thing uppermost on his mind, how we're going to do in that football game. I hope we're going to win the game. How are things going on the Hill? He wants to see what's happened since he was here last. He makes an appointment with the president of the university each time he comes, because he wants to find out directly from the president what the president has to say about how things are going. And he has love and respect and devotion to this old hilltop that grows out of the many years of his experience here as a student, athlete, and then as a member of the faculty and coaching staff. He has blessed our lives by giving us the opportunity to fellowship with him when he comes. And Edith did as well. She was so gracious. And, as long as Harriet has plenty of pecan pie for him while he's here, he's going to have a good homecoming if we win the football game.
Good job.
We're good.
How much tape do you have left so I
Says
can
5
ask
minutes.
that? 5 minutes? Now can we switch gears? And if you would, just from your recollection, share with us the story of your brother Joe and his experience with Picasso at his first exhibit.
Well, Joe Dudley, or Dud as we family calls him, was having the first real exhibition that he was to have in Paris. Of course, there have been many now that have followed, but in that exhibition, there was a gentleman came from the street into the gallery, and this is recorded in an article in Time magazine, actually, that not until his departure did Dud realize who was there, because he was occupied with other things. But as the gentleman departed, he went to Dud and he said, "Well done." And of course that was the label of progress, of achievement, of artistic coming out, that throughout the years that have followed, he's had interaction with some of Picasso's family, a wife, or I'm not sure whether two, but anyway, in Minerve, where Picasso at one time lived, and his widow lived for many years there.
And it turns out this gentleman who uttered those words was indeed
Picasso.
Thank you. Thank you.